I spent the night with a black man, but my husband had a spy app. The moment I woke up that morning, I had no idea my entire world was about to turn upside down. My name is Sarah, and for the last 5 years, I thought I had the perfect marriage. My husband, Mark, was caring, responsible, and the kind of man every woman dreams of. But there was one thing I never saw coming: his obsession with control. It all started when I reconnected with an old friend, Daniel. We had known each other since college, and he had always been someone I could talk to about anything. When we met again after years, it felt natural, comfortable. He was charming, funny, and a good listener, something I had been missing for a long time. My husband, always busy with work, never noticed how distant we had become, or at least that's what I thought. One evening, Daniel invited me over to catch up. I hesitated, not because I had any bad intentions, but because deep down, I knew Mark wouldn't like it. Still, I convinced myself it was innocent, just two old friends talking. I spent the night laughing, sharing stories, and feeling alive in a way I hadn't in years. But what I didn't know was that Mark knew exactly where I was. He had been watching me the whole time. The next morning, I woke up to a message from my husband. My heart pounded as I read the words on my screen. "We need to talk, now." I felt a chill run down my spine. How did he know? What did he see? And what was he going to do next? My hands trembled as I stared at the message. "We need to talk, now." It wasn't like Mark to send something so direct, so cold. 1,000 thoughts ran through my mind. Did he know where I had been? How? I forced myself to breathe, but my heart wouldn't slow down. I quickly got dressed, grabbed my things, and said a rushed goodbye to Daniel. He could tell something was wrong, but I couldn't explain. My entire body was tense as I drove home. The closer I got, the more my stomach twisted. When I walked through the door, Mark was already sitting on the couch, his phone in his hand. His face was calm, too calm. "You had a good time last night?" His voice was even, but his eyes told a different story. My mouth went dry. Yeah, I caught up with an old friend," I said, trying to sound normal. But I could see it in his face. He knew. He didn't say anything for a moment, just looked at me, his grip tightening on his phone. Then he turned the screen toward me. My breath caught in my throat. There on the screen was my location from last night, a red dot sitting at Daniel's address. "You forgot, didn't you?" His voice was quieter now, almost disappointed. "The app, the one we installed for safety." I felt sick. Months ago, after hearing stories about missing people, Mark had suggested we install a location sharing app on our phones. It seemed harmless at the time, just a way to make sure we were always safe. But now I realized this wasn't about safety. It was about control. "You tracked me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't have to," he said, shaking his head. "You gave me permission, remember?" I wanted to argue, to tell him this wasn't fair, but my own words from months ago echoed in my head. "It's just a precaution, nothing serious." That's what I had told myself when we installed it. But now, the way he was looking at me, it was clear. He wasn't just checking in on me. He was watching me. "Why were you there all night?" he finally asked. I opened my mouth to answer, but the truth felt complicated. Could I tell him I had stayed because, for the first time in years, I felt like someone truly saw me, that I had laughed, talked, and felt more alive in those hours than I had in my own home? I hesitated for just a second too long, and that's when his expression changed. Mark's eyes darkened as he studied my face. He was waiting for an answer, but I didn't know what to say. The truth? That I felt something missing in our marriage? That for one night I had let myself forget the distance between us? Saying it out loud would only make things worse, but lying wouldn't fix anything either. I fell asleep, I finally said, my voice quieter than I wanted it to be. It wasn't the whole truth, but it wasn't a lie either. Mark exhaled sharply, shaking his head. You expect me to believe that? His grip on his phone tightened. You spent the night at another man's place and didn't think I'd find out? His words stung, but what hurt more was the way he said them, as if I had betrayed him, as if I had done something unforgivable. I wanted to remind him that Daniel was just a friend, that I had never crossed any lines. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the real issue. This wasn't just about last night. It was about everything that had been building between us for years. Why were you even checking my location? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. You never do that. Why now? For a second, he hesitated. That's when I realized he hadn't just randomly checked. He had been looking for a reason. You've been different, he admitted, his voice lower now. Distant, like you're here, but you're not. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration clear on his face. I had a feeling, and I was right. Guilt and anger twisted inside me. He was right. I had been distant. But did that give him the right to track me? To treat me like a suspect instead of his wife? You don't trust me, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Mark let out a bitter laugh. Should I? The weight of his words hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to yell, to tell him he was being unfair, but deep down I knew this wasn't just about what happened last night. This was about everything we hadn't said to each other. And now, with the truth out in the open, I wasn't sure if we could ever go back. The silence between us was heavy, stretching longer than it should have. Mark's words echoed in my head, each one cutting deeper than the last. Should I trust you? I swallowed hard, my mind racing. I wanted to tell him I had never betrayed him, that I would never do that. But a part of me hesitated. Was emotional distance just as bad as physical betrayal? Had I already broken something between us without even realizing it? Mark stood up, pacing the room. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. You know what hurts the most? He finally said. It's not that you were with him. It's that you didn't think about us when you made that choice. His voice wavered, and for the first time, I saw something beyond anger in his eyes. Pain. I took a shaky breath. It wasn't like that, I whispered. I didn't. I stopped myself. What was I even trying to say? That I didn't mean for it to happen? That I didn't realize how much it would hurt him? That wasn't good enough. Mark scoffed, shaking his head. You don't get it, do you? This isn't just about last night. It's about every time I looked at you and felt like you weren't really here anymore. Guilt crashed over me like a wave. He was right. I had been distant. I had let my loneliness push me towards something I didn't fully understand. And now, standing in front of him, seeing the raw hurt in his eyes, I wondered if I had already lost him. Did you want me to find out? He asked suddenly, his voice quieter. His question caught me off guard. What? You didn't delete the app, he said. You didn't turn off your location. Did you want me to know? Was this some kind of test? I stared at him, my heart pounding. The truth was, I hadn't thought about the app at all. But now that he said it, I realized maybe some part of me did want him to notice. Maybe I had been waiting for him to finally see me again. His phone buzzed on the table, breaking the moment. He glanced at the screen, his face darkening. Then, without a word, he turned it toward me, and when I saw what was on it, my blood ran cold. My eyes locked onto the screen, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. It was a message, one I had never seen before. But the name at the top sent a chill straight through me. Daniel. The words beneath his name made my stomach twist. I hope you made it home safe. Last night was special. Let's talk soon. The floor felt like it had been ripped out from under me. My mouth opened, but no words came out. I hadn't seen that message. How had Mark? My hands shook as I grabbed my own phone and checked my messages. Nothing. The text wasn't there. Mark let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. You deleted it, didn't you? His voice was quiet, but there was something dangerous beneath it. You erased the evidence and thought I'd never know. I felt dizzy. I didn't. I stopped. It didn't matter what I said. The message was real. He had seen it. And now there was no way to take it back. Mark's grip tightened around his phone. So tell me, Sarah, he said, voice shaking. What exactly was so special about last night? I couldn't answer, not because I was guilty, but because I genuinely didn't know what Daniel meant. Yes, we had talked. Yes, we had laughed, but nothing had happened, at least not the way Mark thought. I swear I never saw that message, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know why it's not on my phone. Mark's eyes narrowed. Convenient. I ran a hand through my hair, my mind racing. Think about it, Mark. Why would I delete a message on my phone but not yours? If I was hiding something, don't you think I'd cover my tracks better? For the first time, doubt flickered across his face. Just for a second. Then it was gone. Maybe you wanted me to see it, he said. Maybe you wanted me to hurt. My stomach twisted. Why would I ever want that? He turned away, rubbing his temples. I don't know anymore, Sarah. I don't know what to believe. And then, as if the night couldn't get any worse, his phone buzzed again. Another message. This time, it wasn't from Daniel. It was from an unknown number. Mark frowned and tapped the screen. His face changed instantly. Whatever he had just read made his entire body go stiff. I stepped closer, my heart pounding. What is it? He turned the phone toward me, and what I saw made my blood run cold. It was a picture, a grainy, zoomed-in photo of me and Daniel from last night, sitting close together, laughing. The kind of picture that could easily be misunderstood. But that wasn't the worst part. The message beneath it sent ice through my veins. You should really be careful who you trust. A shiver ran down my spine as I stared at the message. My pulse pounded in my ears. Someone had been watching me. Someone had taken that picture. But who and why? Mark's grip on the phone tightened. Who sent this? He muttered under his breath, his eyes scanning the screen as if the answer would reveal itself. I don't know, I whispered, my voice barely holding steady. Mark, I swear I don't know anything about this. He looked at me then, searching my face for any sign of a lie. For the first time that night, his anger wavered, replaced by something else, fear. This wasn't just about us anymore. Someone else was involved. Then his phone buzzed again. Another message. Check your email. Mark didn't hesitate. He pulled up his inbox, his fingers moving fast. And then his entire body went still. My heart felt like it was about to explode as I leaned in, my breath catching in my throat. It was a video. Grainy, black and white, but the setting was unmistakable. Daniel's living room. And there I was, sitting on his couch, laughing, completely unaware of the camera. I clutched my stomach, nausea rising. How, how is this possible? Mark turned to me, his face pale. Your friend, he said, voice cold. Did he know someone was filming? I shook my head frantically. No, he wouldn't, he couldn't. But even as I said it, doubt crept in. Who else had access to that house? Who else could have set this up? My mind raced, and then, suddenly, something clicked. A memory. Daniel mentioning a neighbor who always seemed to know too much. A man who had once joked about installing cameras everywhere, for safety. At the time, it had seemed harmless. Now it felt anything but. Mark exhaled sharply, running a hand over his face. Someone's trying to mess with us, Sarah. Someone wants me to think the worst. And then the final message came through. You're not the only one with secrets. A chill ran through my entire body because in that moment I realized whoever was behind this didn't just want to expose the truth. They wanted to destroy us. A heavy silence filled the room as Mark and I stared at the last message. My mind was spinning, trying to make sense of it all. Who was behind this? And what did they mean? You're not the only one with secrets? Mark exhaled, his shoulders tense. This isn't just about us, he said finally. Someone's trying to manipulate the situation. I nodded slowly. Whoever had been watching me wasn't just trying to ruin my marriage. They wanted to control the narrative, twist reality into something it wasn't. But why? Then a terrifying thought hit me. What if Daniel's in danger? My voice shook as I grabbed my phone, my fingers fumbling to call him. The ringing felt endless, each second stretching longer than it should. But finally, he picked up. Sarah? His voice was groggy, confused. What's going on? I let out a breath of relief. Are you okay? There was a pause. Yeah, why wouldn't I be? I hesitated. If someone was watching us, listening even, I couldn't say too much. Just be careful, okay? Daniel sighed. Sarah, what's happening? Before I could answer, Mark took the phone from my hand. Did you send her that message last night? His tone was sharp, accusing. What message? Daniel sounded genuinely confused. Mark and I exchanged a look. If Daniel wasn't lying, then that meant someone else had sent the text in his name. Someone who wanted to stir doubt between us. I pulled my laptop onto my lap, opening my own email. If Mark had received that video, maybe there was more. My hands trembled as I scrolled through unread messages until I saw it. An email from an unknown sender, just like Mark's, but this one had no attachments. Just 2 words. Look deeper. My chest tightened. This wasn't over. Whoever was behind this was still watching, still waiting for something. Mark's jaw clenched as he read over my shoulder. He shut his phone off and looked at me. We're not playing their game, he said firmly. Whoever this is, they want us to break. We're not giving them that. I nodded, though the fear inside me hadn't fully settled. But he was right. If we gave in to paranoia, they won. Mark reached for my hand, something we hadn't done in a long time. We'll figure this out, he said. Together. And for the first time in years, I believed him.